There were videotapes dating back to the summer of 2002.
Hidden in Thailand, videotapes of the interrogation of Abu Zubaydah.
I was told if those videotapes had ever been seen, the reaction around the world would not have been survivable. So the CIA is in a panic. They've got these red-hot videotapes on their hands.
This man, Jose Rodriguez, the CIA's top operations officer, knew how dangerous the tapes were and wanted to destroy them.
Jose Rodriguez wanted to nip it in the bud. He floats this idea of destroying the tapes so they would never come out, and makes everybody nervous. Whoa, wait a second, could that be construed as a criminal cover-up if you do?
Since he'd learned of the tapes, Rizzo had told Rodriguez not to destroy them. Then, disturbing news.
One of my lawyers in the Counterterrorism Center sent me a cable from the facility to headquarters, a very short cable that essentially says, pursuant to headquarters directions, the videotapes have been destroyed. And needless to say, after 25 years of CIA, I didn't think too much could flabbergast me, but reading that cable did.
Jose Rodriguez had ordered the destruction of the tapes. On the 7th floor, they made a decision. They would tell almost no one what he had done.
Well, we have some latest news on the updates regarding Abu Zubaydah, who's a captured detainee languishing in Guantánamo Bay. An article written by The Guardian just yesterday, talking about the working group on arbitrary detention, which is a body of independent human rights experts that investigate cases of arbitrary arrest and detention. And it's one of the thematic special procedures overseen by the United Nations Human Rights Council, which is a subsidiary body of the UN. And what I'll do is I'll share the screen regarding this story that is basically talking about Abu Zubaydah and the release thereof, maybe the release of Abu Zubaydah through the arbitrary detention group. And as you can see, it's written on April 28th, 2023. Crimes against humanity. The UN body calls for the release of Guantánamo inmate. A UN body has declared that the detention of a long-term Guantánamo inmate, Abu Zubaydah, has no lawful basis and called for his immediate release, warning that the systematic deprivation of liberty at the camp may constitute crimes against humanity. Now, let me, for those who don't know anything about Abu Zubaydah is a Saudi who is currently held at the Guantánamo Bay detention camp in Cuba, and he's being held under the authority of the Authorization for the Use of Military Force Against Terrorists. Zubaydah was actually captured in Pakistan in March of 2002, and John Kiriakou, who I interviewed, talks more about this, and I'll link that interview in the description about the operation involving Abu Zubaydah. He's been in U.S. custody ever since, and including those first 4.5 years were held in CIA black sites, which are basically torture sites located outside the United States in countries like Poland and Egypt. And Zubaydah was actually transferred to a lot of these countries, including Poland. And during his time in CIA custody, he was actually interrogated hundreds of times, and he was waterboarded approximately over 80 times. And he was subjected to forced nudity, sleep deprivation, confinement in small dark boxes, I believe stress positions. I think one position he was in was that Zubaydah actually, when he was captured, he was interrogated by Ali Soufan first, the FBI agent out of New York, who was investigating the Cole attack in 9/11. And basically, he was getting somewhere with Zubaydah. Actually, he was with another an associate. Forgive me, I forgot his name, but basically, what happened was Ali Soufan knew that he went by a nickname that his mother used to call him, which was Hani, and basically, he was very receptive of that, and so Ali Soufan, what's called George Tenet, the director of the CIA, actually was he knew that the FBI was interrogating him, and basically went to Bush, and that was all she wrote, because the CIA had been given carte blanche by the Bush administration to basically take over the rendition and torture program, which was basically called the SEER program. And Zubaydah actually, the first day, the CIA, or the first week they got him, they put him in his coffin, but they knew he was scared of bugs, and they put bugs on his coffin and left him in there for like, I think 48 hours or something like that. It was like a day or two, no longer. But what did that serve? What did that, what was that? What was the purpose of this? Because he actually shut down. And it's no like secret at this point that torture doesn't procure information. Now, later on, when we had the Senate Select Committee that investigated torture, the CIA detention and interrogation program by the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, they found, which was headed by Dianne Feinstein, and Daniel Jones, who investigated the matter, they found that numerous instances of detainees that were captured were tortured mercilessly, and most of the information they gave was made up. Now, there are certain instances where they told the truth, but how can you tell the truth from the lie? Because you'll say anything at this point when it comes to torture. Even if they're telling the truth, it has to come into suspicion because they're being tortured. Maybe that's the reason why the CIA did this. And I'm speculating here, but the reason why the CIA didn't want the public to know is because with knowledge, we can actually act on knowledge. And with 9/11, there is no definitive yes and no. So we have to go by the very small pieces and basically try to piece together the picture of 9/11. And, we're not even like 90% there yet, but starting to get some pieces over the years, and hopefully soon enough we'll get a lot of information through FOIAs and declassification projects. And currently Zubaydah is being held at Guantánamo Bay, and later on the European Court of Human Rights ordered the Polish government to actually pay Zubaydah, because Zubaydah said through his lawyer, and I forgot his lawyer's name, that he would be donating the awards to the victims of torture. And this happened in 2014. I don't know the exact date, but it was 2014. Zubaydah was alleged by the CIA to be a high-level Al-Qaeda operative, and he was known for being overseeing the Chaldean training camp, where he oversaw the flow of recruits and obtained like fake passports and paperwork for men transferring out of Chaldean. And although the CIA described the Chaldean camp as a training camp, basically it has come under scrutiny from multiple sources, and that the camp may have been shut down in 2001 in response to an ideological division between the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. So, and there's a lot of differences, religious difference. I'm not going to get into it here, between Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, actually. One goes by the Pashtun-Wali Code of Ethics, which actually predates Islam. Al-Qaeda basically goes by the Wahhabi, or the more Al-Wahhab traditionalist Salafi Ibn Taymiyyah tenets involving Sunni Islam, which is the branch of the two branches of Islam, are Sunni and Shia. But nevertheless, the U.S. government had their eye on Zubaydah since 1999, and put him as a head senior bin Laden official. Later on, afterwards, the CIA basically had to deal back and basically say that that Zubaydah was not important at all, even after they tortured him. I think this was in 2006, where they basically had to deal back their label of Abu Zubaydah as saying, oh, he's a high-level Al-Qaeda official, when the CIA is basically saying in 2006 that he was not. And so this posed a problem, what to do with Abu Zubaydah, because here's a guy who basically can basically come out and say, I was tortured for no real reason. I was suspected of being an Al-Qaeda official. According to the CIA, I'm not. And so what happened was that the CIA basically, through the U.S. government, made him a forever prisoner. He's not charged with anything. And so he is I think he's the only prisoner where he is not actually charged with a crime, but they fear that he is too dangerous to be let go. And so they can't. So if that makes any sense, that's the gist of Abu Zubaydah. But let's go back to the article, right? So the UN Working Group in Arbitrary Detention also declared the United Kingdom, among other countries, was jointly responsible for the torture and cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment of Mr. Zubaydah over his more than 20 years in detention. The UNWGAD group finding released on Friday specifically addressed the case of Abu Zubaydah and held and tortured by the CIA, in which the U.S. initially claimed he was number 3 in Al-Qaeda, but later conceded he was not a member of all. Remember, I was talking about that. The CIA in 2006, I believe it was through the Chicago Tribune where I read that. It's been a while, so yeah, he was not a member of Al-Qaeda at all. Remember what I told you about the Chaldean training camp? The Taliban shut that down. Taliban rules Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda does not. Even though Al-Qaeda and Taliban coexisted, it was very tentative coexistence. Remember that. The finding went further to address detention at Guantánamo in general and expresses grave concern about the pattern that all these cases follow, and recalls that under certain circumstances, widespread or systematic imprisonment or other severe deprivation of liberty and violation of fundamental rules of international law may constitute crimes against humanity. And yes, you know, that by the way, that's right. So what the CIA did basically can be seen as a crime against humanity. So I blew it up a little bit more so you can read it. The UN Working Group is a quasi-judicial body issuing legal judgments on behalf of the international community, but they are not binding. Nor does it have the power to enforce its findings. It is made up of 5 legal experts from around the world. The current panel consists of lawyers, law professors, and former judges from Malaysia, New Zealand, Ukraine, Ecuador, and Zambia. Friday marks the first time an international body has referred to the 21-year-old prison camp as a potential crime against humanity. I would say so, considering the amount of torture these people endured, the methods of torture these people endured. According to the Rome Statutes, which is The Hague's definition, you have crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes of aggression. This would be labeled as crimes of aggression and crimes against humanity. I have the definitions uploaded to my WordPress. Just type in Rome Statutes, and the definitions will come up. The decision also found Pakistan, Poland, and Lithuania to be part responsible. That's because Pakistan for participation in his arrest and rendition, and Poland and Lithuania for hosting black sites, CIA black sites, torture sites. The reason why the CIA did this is because in the United States, the detainees have a level of protection. Let me talk about that for a minute, because I think this is important. On November 13, 2001, John Yoo, who is one of the White House legal counsel, had sanctioned White House plans to give the Defense Department the sole authority to decide what constitutes a terrorist or a captured detainee, and who could be tried in a military commission. Now, that would be left up to the Attorney General, the Department of Justice. However, according to Cheney, the Secretary of State Colin Powell, the National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice, and the Attorney General John Ashcroft, well, they were left out of the loop. Now, David Addington, who is Cheney's personal lawyer, would later edit this draft to where the White House, not the Defense Department, the Pentagon, which was originally designated to be the arbiter of who's a terrorist and who could be tried in military commission. No, now it's up to the White House, the president, who would decide which terrorists would be tried. And in this important memo, ignores international law. This is what I'm talking about regarding Abu Zubaydah, and why I think this is important to talk about, because this suggested that the president could abide by the memo or not. And terrorists, those who were labeled terrorists by the president, would not be afforded protection under the Geneva Convention. This is currently the problem in Guantánamo Bay. And what would this mean overall? That any foreign nation that the president deems as a nation that allows terrorists living inside it or conspired in terrorism, suspected, they would come under attack. And the defendants would have limited rights to confront their accusers, such as they wouldn't be able to see evidence against them or stand in front of their accusers at trial. And what I just described is indefinite detention. This is a really big problem, because the rendition program was left up to the CIA. The torture program was left up to the CIA. The pressure or the allowance for this came from the Bush White House under White House legal counsel. Now, I think it's in Malaysia or Thailand, where they're the only country on the earth that has an arrest warrant for Vice President Cheney, the late Secretary Rumsfeld, the late Colin Powell, and John Yoo and David Addington, another White House legal counsel, because they're the ones who drafted this memo that created indefinite detention. I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit, but let's go back to the article. Helen Duffy, Zubaydah's international legal representative, who runs a Hague-based legal group that's the Human Rights in Practice, said, today's decision is a powerful reminder of the complete unlawfulness of Guantanamo and our client's situation in particular. The UK has been found legally responsible for complicity in our client's torture and ongoing unlawful detention, and reparations should follow. This can include offers of relocation, recognition, and apology, rehabilitation, and compensation. And she also added, we needed to reckon with the fact that the war on terror, as waged for 20 years, has failed, and it did. Just like every war the United States has conducted, even the war on drugs. But we cannot pretend to learn lessons from it while perpetuating its most notorious wrongs. There are 30 inmates left at Guantanamo camp, of which only one has been convicted of a crime. 10 are involved in military tribunal proceedings, although in most cases the trials are not even started, including the 5 who are alleged to have been the orchestrators and planners of September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. 16 have been recommended for a transfer to another country pending security guarantees, and the Biden administration has been in quiet negotiations with foreign governments to persuade them to accept transfer inmates. One of those countries is Saudi Arabia, who's not been very forthcoming. Zubaydah is one of 3 forever prisoners who have not been charged and not been recommended for transfer. I did say he was the only one. I'm wrong. There's 2 others. So that's the article from the Guantanamo. Now, there are people out there in the United States who've been talking about this for quite some time. And let me share one group in particular I want to give credit to. And that's Project Althea. This is headed by directors Mark Fallon, who I've interviewed, and Maria Hartwig, who I follow. And both of you, anybody out there who knows me, I only follow people I consider to be reputable and honorable people, people who speak truth to power. And I hope to be that type of person. But please follow them. They've been absolutely fantastic. And they talk about the science and practice of interrogation. Maria Hartwig actually is a professor at John Jay University, and Mark Fallon, who wrote the book on Justifiable Means, it talks about the torture and rendition practices that were conducted by the CIA and upheld by the Bush White House and Obama White Houses. And so they deserve a lot of credit. Their work has been just fascinating, along with people like Alka Bratkan and Carol Rosenberg, who's the top level reporter reporting out of Guantánamo, who I think is the best in the country. They all deserve your follow. So, what do we make of Abu Zubaydah? Well, the U.S. Supreme Court decision in connection with the European Court of Human Rights proceedings, in which Zubaydah filed suit in the United States seeking disclosure of information relating to his matter, in which the U.S. government intervened seeking to assess the date to state a state secrets privilege. In other words, they don't want Zubaydah looking at the evidence against him. Why? Because there is none. Not only that, they don't need him released, because what would that mean? That everything that is relating to Al-Qaeda detainees can basically come under question, because Zubaydah was considered the number 3. And they found out after almost 5 years of torture, he wasn't even a high-level Al-Qaeda operative. So the U.S. District Court decided in favor of the government to dismiss the case, and on appeal, the dismissal was actually reversed in a ruling that the state secrets privilege did not apply to information that was already publicly known. And the Supreme Court reversed the appeal ruling, explaining that the state secrets privilege applies to the existence or the non-existence of a secret CIA facility, and that revelation by government will confirm or deny that state secret. And that is coming from the state Supreme Court, United States, dated March 3rd, 2022, in the U.S. Versus Hussein, aka Abu Zubaydah, which is the Centauri to the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. Now, you had a piece, which is an opinion piece by the New York Times dated April 29, 2023, which is an excellent write-up by the editorial board at the New York Times. Biden closed the extrajudicial prison at Guantánamo. Last week, Saeed Ibrahim Bakush was released from detention. Say that 10 times quick. Was released from detention at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and returned to Algeria, his home country, suspected of being a low-level fighter for Al-Qaeda at age 52. He was in his 21st year of detention at the prison, had no charges filed against him, and stopped speaking to lawyers. He's one of the 3. He stopped speaking to lawyers about 5 years ago. Mr. Bakush's release leaves 30 men of the 780 held. The rest got released. President Biden said at the outset of his administration that he would seek to have the detention center closed, and he directed the Defense Department to study how best to do so. But at the rate these cases are moving, resolving them could take several more years, of course, because what the U.S. government was hoping was that the 5 charged with September 11th, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Ramzi bin al-Shibh, Tawfiq bin Achash, also known as Khalid, Abdulaziz Ali, Amr al-Baluchi, who was the nephew of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and Mustafa al-Hawsawi. All 5, brutally tortured. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was waterboarded over 163 times. Ramzi bin al-Shibh over 85 times. So yeah, Mustafa al-Hawsawi was actually raped with objects up his anus, and just he can't sit properly. This is ridiculous. What we did to these people, cruel and inhumane. And this is the reason why, when I played that video clip in the beginning of the video here, if the public knew about the torture that these people endured, the people of the United States would actually sympathize with those who are supposed to be the alleged masterminds of the 9/11 attacks. That tells you how cruel and inhumane the process was regarding the CIA, who I think is even worse than Al-Qaeda at one point, in regards to the general history of it. Now, the moral imperative and the ethical case of doing so has only gotten stronger with time. As long as there are people held in detention at Guantanamo, America's condemnation of brutal detention centers in China and Syria will ring hollow. And there was a particular cruelty by the time. On April 21st, a senior official of the International Committee of the Red Cross issued a rare public call for the U.S. military to provide better care for prisoners because they are experiencing the symptoms of accelerated aging, worsening by the cumulative effect of their experiences in the years spent in detention and isolation and torture, right? We have a chance to pressure the Biden administration. We're up for re-election. That's next year. This should be at the center. This is at the center of Obama and his administration, and he promised that, the torture was going to end, and he did. Rendition programs closed under him, but Guantanamo wasn't. And he was actually the author of the drone strike program that the CIA implemented in the late 1990s, that they were afraid to use on, say, bin Laden in Afghanistan, because they were under fire from the Church Committee hearings. After 9/11, like Kofor Black said, the gloves are off. CIA is back to its old business. In fact, they're much worse in many respects. Now, they were given a blank check. They were given authorization by the President of the United States to conduct a rendition and torture program. And now it's come out that the CIA was running a black secret operation with the Saudi General Intelligence Directorate that had tried to conduct a information program, an intelligence program, where they were hoping to flip 2 Al-Qaeda operatives that were involved with the USS Cole attacks, that were meeting with the mastermind, the alleged mastermind of the Cole attacks, Tawfiq bin Attash, who was in Guantanamo, and this information was kept from them, from the FBI and the White House, the CIA. So we need to call to attention and support the people who are doing just that. So that's the end of this video, and that's the latest updates regarding 9/11. See you in the next video.